Welcome back to another episode of Discipleship with Bori. In today's Midweek Devotional, we're going to be talking about Mimikyu, the Pokemon. Now, Mimikyu is a ghost type Pokemon who is afraid that people and trainers won't love it and accept it because it's a ghost and it's ugly, potentially. We don't know what Mimikyu looks like because it covers itself in this cloak that is appeared or made to be like Pikachu. And Pikachu is a well known Pokemon whom everybody loves. So this ghost takes on this appearance of Pikachu so that people will love it in the same way that people love Pikachu. And I'm going to use that theme and that story about Mimikyu to help us get some perspective in our faith journey and understand things in our life a little bit more and how God uses us. And I want to use 1 Samuel chapter 21. It's the story about David. Now, David, during this time, he was already anointed king. He had already defeated Goliath. But he's now on the run because Saul, the current king, is seeking to kill David because Saul is jealous of David. So David is on the run for his life. He's going through different nations and trying to flee Saul from persecuting him. And he gets to a point in chapter 21 where he flees to a place called Gath. And when he gets to Gath, he's afraid. He's afraid because the king of Gath could potentially let Saul know that he's here, that David is here. So, in order for David to be spared, he acts like a madman. He acts like a crazy person so that they don't see him as a threat. May don't even see him as David at all. In verse 12, it says, "And David took these words to heart and was much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them and pretended to be insane in their hands, and made marks on the doors of the gate and let his spit run down his beard. And so Achish said to his servants, 'Do I lack madmen that you have brought this fellow to behave as a madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house?' And then chapter 22, verse 1 says, David departed from there and escaped." So this worked for David and it works for Mimikyu, right? Where you change your appearance because of your fear or because of your insecurity, potentially. And I want to let us know today that in this context of David, we can't really relate to him, right? Because a lot of us aren't running for our physical lives. Like our lives may not be in danger. That's why we're running from something. It's more so where we can relate to Mimikyu, where we take on certain things in our lives and certain beliefs about ourselves to mask our insecurity. Mimikyu is a ghost type Pokemon and it's afraid that no one will love it and no one will accept it because of what it is. It's a ghost, it's a Pokemon. But so it takes on this appearance of something that's more well known, something that's more acceptable in Pikachu, in hopes that people will love it in the same way. And we do the same thing in our lives as Christians, right? Where we or people in general, where we would take on a different appearance to mask our insecurities. And God is such a graceful and just God. He sees past our insecurity. The thing that we're insecure about, he actually wants to use. It's not that we need to mask anything that he has put in us. He does not we have to mask things that we believe about ourselves. He wants to use those things and he chooses us because of those things that we're insecure about that are unique to us. And he wants to use those things to advance his kingdom and accomplish the purpose that he has spoken to in our lives. Because similar to David, and what we can all relate to as well in the story of David, is that David is anointed. He was anointed as king, but he was not king yet. And God has called you to a purpose, and you may feel like you're not there yet, but you're right where he wants you to be. See, though David was anointed, though he wasn't king yet, that was God's plan and that was God's purpose, that he didn't want to anoint David king and then make him king a day later. He wanted to use the trials and tribulations that he was going to go through from being anointed before he got on the throne as king to prepare him for that destination. And so, in our lives as well, when God created us, when He formed us, He put a plan and a purpose over our lives that said that I'm going to love you no matter what. And I'm going to use the challenges and the experiences in your life and the insecurities to develop you into the thing that I've called you to, the ultimate dream and the ultimate goal. And really, the ultimate dream and the ultimate goal isn't really a destination, but it's more of a process of where, like, okay, now I'm established and I'm firm in my faith. That's sort of the destination, but the process is where God uses the insecurities to mold us into His image and to create us into the person with character that He wants us to be when we get to that place. But it's not that we need to hide and be afraid and be ashamed of who we are. I think God doesn't need it. Well, I know God doesn't need us to be perfect in order for Him to use us. He wants to change our perspective about Him and change our perspective about ourselves in the process of getting to the purpose that you think that God has for your life, that dream to be not just anointed king, but to serve and act as king. And that is, we think of God's purpose as this one destination, but it's really the whole process of our life is God's purpose and God's will for our life. So while we're struggling with these insecurities, we need to know that God isn't intimidated by our insecurities. He's not ashamed of the things that we think make us insecure. He wants to use those things to glorify Him. He wants to change those insecurities and make it so that it's now something that we don't see as something that limits us, but something that we see that God can use anyway. Because every person in the Bible who has ever been used by God had something wrong about them. They had some fault in them because we're human. So we have faults, we have insecurities, we have things that we think limit us, but those exact things are the things that God wants to use. And those are the things that God has given us to make us unique for the purpose in which He has called us. So be encouraged today. Don't continue to hide in your insecurity, but allow God to form you and use those things for His glory and for His kingdom, and see how His love for you changes your perspective on yourself and Him. So that was today's midweek devotional. Stay encouraged and be blessed.